A dark fantastic network presentation. Last scene. A mystery.
Tommy was 10 years old but looked younger. Some girls at school liked his baby-like looks, and almost all mothers, including his own, of course, thought he was tremendously cute. What Tommy thought about all this was that he wished he looked his age. All he wanted was to be normal, not to be picked on at school, and maybe have a few chest muscles in the bargain. Tonight, his mother, the one who thought he was a cutesy pie and who probably wished he would stay 10 years old forever, had called at the library where he'd been attending a book club for young readers called Masters of Masts, which mainly concerned itself with books about seafaring adventures. Anyway, his mother had called to tell him that there was some sort of emergency with his older sister, Mary, who was 14 and looked 30. It was not a medical emergency or anything like that, but some kind of wardrobe mishap that had to do with some party or other. And so his mother had to take his sister somewhere to get something fixed or repaired or stitched together, and he had to take his cutesy pie self back home. He didn't mind. He was 10, not a baby, and it was only a 15-minute walk through crowded streets in safe neighborhoods, as his mother called them. Now, as he passed Central on his way to Holland Avenue, his backpack slung over his shoulder, he suddenly had an urge to look behind him. He didn't know why. He wasn't scared or anything. There was no reason to be scared, as he was in a crowded street full of not very scary-looking grown-ups, and it was only 7 o'clock. The sun had set not so long ago, and the sky was just starting to get darker, taking on that purplish color that he always found strange and kind of cool. But that urge to turn around was mighty strong, and he didn't see any harm in obeying it. So Tommy turned around and saw nothing out of the ordinary. There was no creepy guy in a trench coat, no bag lady with crazy eyes, and no kids from school out to have some fun at his expense. He shrugged, turned around, and started walking. "Tommy boy," a voice said. "A woman." He froze, turned around. No one there but passers-by, none of whom gave him a second glance. "Tommy boy," she said, her voice silky sweet. He turned around, looked ahead, but he couldn't see her. "You don't look that young to me," she said, and this time he knew where the sound was coming from. He looked up and saw her standing there on rusty stairs leading up to some closed-up restaurant that had some kind of French name. Apparel, or some word like that. He saw that she was older, much older, maybe even a college student. She was pretty, with long brown hair and big, beautiful eyes. But it was the dress that really got him. She was dressed in a white evening dress, no sleeves, the kind he saw women wear in old, black and white movies, which he secretly loved watching. "Are you talking to me?" he managed to say, and hated himself for sounding so much like a squeaky baby. "Your name is Tommy, isn't it?" she said, and he noticed how clear her voice was. Somehow, it seemed to drown every other sound around him. "How do you know my name?" She leaned over the railing, letting the light reveal more of her beautiful face. "Does it matter?" she said, then turned around and started coming down the stairs. Tommy just stood there, watching her, mesmerized. He knew he should just walk away. He knew that he knew better than to talk to strangers, even ones as pretty as her, as pretty as a movie star. He blinked, breaking the trance, and saw that she'd reached the bottom of the stairs and that she was walking away, slowly, into a dark alley. He took a couple of steps forward. He wanted to watch her for a few moments more from afar. What could be the harm in that? She went deeper, deeper into the alley. Deeper, away from the lights and the sounds of the city. He couldn't help it, he had to see, so he started walking towards her, just a few more paces, just to see where she was going, what she was doing. But in his moment of indecision, she disappeared. His shoulders sagged, his imagination, the overactive imagination of a 10-year-old boy, felt cheated. He wanted to know more about her and her story. "Are you following me?" Tommy jumped in place. She was there again, in the alley, silhouetted against a distant light. She was also closer, much closer than when he'd last spotted her. Tommy was flustered, afraid, embarrassed, and so many other things that defeated definition by his young mind. But most of all, he was excited. "I said, are you following me, Tommy?" "No. I mean, I just wanted to say." Sorry, he said, struggling for words. He really had to get out of here. He felt like he was gonna die of embarrassment, making an idiot of himself like that in front of a gorgeous woman. Well, if you were following me, I don't mind, she said. And she came closer. And he stood still. And she came closer and reached out her hand. And he took a step back, slightly afraid. But it was too late. Michelle had already touched his neck. Slow down a bit. I need to catch my breath, Johnny said. No, Lara said, hurrying forward. They were on their way to Wallace Street, where Michelle had last been seen. All right, I can't go on, he said, sweating like a pig. He couldn't believe how out of shape he was. If you want to go back, do it, she said without a backward glance. He swore under his breath. Fine, he said, and instinctively reached inside his jacket pocket, grabbing his emergency flask. But it wasn't there. That's right, he thought. I'm pretending to be a good boy, sobering up, and all that nonsense. Lara suddenly stopped. What? He said, almost bumping into her. She didn't respond. He sighed and took advantage of this wonderful respite from brute exertion to grab his handkerchief and wipe the flop sweat from his face. I can't believe it, she said, looking around her. He didn't take the bait, wanting to stretch this moment of rest as long as possible. He asked himself, for the umpteenth time tonight, what was he doing here? He wanted to help Lara find her sister, he really did, but this was going too far. She couldn't expect him to keep going, to just keep following her blindly till she put him and herself in harm's way. The hum, she said. It's gone. Johnny stopped wiping his face. My God, he said. Lara turned around, something in his voice startling her. And he said, You're wrong. It's there. I can hear it.
This has been Last Scene, a Mystery.